I'm going to make a forward. I'm going to create.
$5 Yep. All right, I will call the regular council meeting on Tuesday, March 17th to order. Hastings County is situated on treaty lands that is rich in indigenous history and home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We honor their cultures and celebrate their commitment to this land. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within. I need a mover that the agenda for the regular council meeting held on March 17th be adopted as presented.
I'll move.
Seconder. Second. All in favor? Carried. Does anyone have a disclosure? None noted. We have a deputation, Joanna Park, Baker Tilly. The year-end presentation. I'm gonna go ahead, Joanna.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Do you want me to put the presentation up or is someone doing that from there?
You get it up to her, whatever she wants.
Go ahead, Joanna, if you can, yeah.
Can you guys hear her okay, or do you want her louder?
We're fine.
Yeah.
Close that down.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And you can see the presentation?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me today and thanks for accommodating me to do it virtually. I promise I will be in person next time. Before you is our presentation. In your packages, you had our year-end financial statements or your year-end financial statements for December 31st, 2024, as well as our post-audit letter. This presentation summarizes both of those documents. And of course, I'm happy to address any questions if anything comes up out of those documents that I didn't address during the presentation. We start with the independent auditor's report because that's really what you're getting. At the end of the day, this is what you want to see is the auditor's report. And it is 2 pages long, but the summary is here on the screen with the second paragraph, and that's our opinion paragraph. And it says, in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the township at December 31st, 2024. And they are consolidated financial statements because they're not only the records of the township, but also include the BIA, the library, and the arena board as well. So that is a clean auditor's opinion, and that's what you would expect to see. There are a few items that we're required to let council know about our audit. So we have to let you know what we do as part of our audit. We review council minutes, the closed and the open sessions, to make sure that anything you've approved regarding the finances of the township are appropriately reflected in the financial statements. We do lots of testing. We do random samples. We look at management's estimates and we do analytical review of the balances. We look at your various systems, the money coming in, the money coming out, as well as adjusting entries and disbursements. The audit is complete pending council's approval of the financial statements, and then we'll ask for a signed representation letter from management, as well as we ask the lawyers for confirmation that there's no legal liabilities out there that should be appropriately reflected in the financial statements or in disclosures to the financial statements. We didn't have any significant difficulties encountered during the audit. Of course, with the change in staffing, there were some delays in getting all the information together, but once we got everything, it was all good. There was no disagreements, no changes to our initial audit plan of what we were going to audit, and excellent cooperation. So really want to thank the team there at the township for their help during the audit. There were additional audit procedures this year regarding revenue recognition. There's a new accounting policy this year on how to account for revenue, and really it impacted the way that building permits are now recorded in your financials. Previously, when someone paid for a building permit, the amount would be fully recognized in the year that it was received. Now you have to look at the obligations that are required for that building permit. So for example, if there was 5 inspections that needed to be done based on that building permit, then the revenue would need to be allocated over those 5 inspections. So it did result in an opening adjustment of your financial statements to a deferral of revenue that had been previously recorded of $567,000. So you'll see the impact of that as we go through the financial statements. There were also some uncorrected audit differences noted that you should be aware of, and they really relate to just items that, because of the change in staff, that items that kind of need to be cleaned up, if you will. And I've talked a lot with management, and they are being kind of looked at as the process to get the books and records ready for the 2025 audit. Nothing was significant enough that made us think about the change in the audit opinion. Still feel it's appropriate to give a clean auditor's opinion, but there are items that just council should be aware of. So, no, like I said, just as a result of the change in staff, and I think it's just items that just need to be cleaned up. Then we get into the numbers of financial statements. So taking the different segments that are within the statements, and the first one being the financial assets. So you'll see the various years, just so you can kind of see the trends over the years, 2020 to 2024 on the far right, and then a nice little trend graph to the far right. At the end of December 2024, your cash was sitting at a nice $2.8 million balance. And when you compare that to your receivables, so it went up from 2023 to 2024, but you'll notice your accounts receivable, or the amount owing to you, it went down almost the same amount. So really the cash was just a increase because of the receivables being collected. At the end of 2024, you had almost $1.65 million in accounts receivable, the big ones being HST, amounts from other municipalities for shared services, and utilities and arena receivables. And then the other amount in your financial assets is your taxes receivable, almost $1.7 million. We always look at what that is in relationship to the amount total taxation billed. At the end of 2023, you're at 15.8% of your total levy was sitting in receivables at the end of the year. And in 2024, you're at 16.1%. So it is creeping up there, and it is above the ministry guideline of 10%. So probably if I had, kind of one piece of advice, it would be, start looking at that and making sure that arrears notices and that kind of thing are getting sent out. The difference with your amount in taxes receivable is at the end of each year, if there's water and sewer amounts outstanding, it does get put onto the tax roll. So those are included in your balances. So if you were to compare yourself to another municipality that doesn't have that or doesn't do that, then you're going to look higher anyway. So that should be taken into account there. When we look at your financial liabilities, the amounts owing or the amounts you have on hand that need to be used in future periods. So the first one being your accounts payable, it's going to go up and down just depending on the timing. So you'll see in 2023, it was at 2 million, and in 2024, it was at 1.58 million. And that's just going to go up and down. At the end of 2023, you were fully into the downtown project. So there was a lot of amounts owing for that at the end of the 2023 that were paid during 2024. Deferred revenue, this is the big impact on your building permit. So it went up there, you'll see, from 997,000 to 2.18 million, and 727,000 of that is building permits. So that's revenue that you've collected for building permits by the end of 2024 that then have certain obligations still related to that. So therefore it's sitting in deferred revenue. The other reason for that big increase is $1.2 million is development charges, up from $740,000 in 2023. So you've got $1.2 million at the end of 2024 that's been collected that can be used on future projects. The next line is your long-term debt. It looks like it went up. It did go up, but that's because of 3 new capital leases. So in 2024, you had capital leases for a new plow, excavator, and a grader in there. So that's why, I know you don't have a huge loan, but that is significant and does fall on that line in the financial statements. And then your asset retirement obligations, that was the change last year when I came to council to present. That was changed from your landfill closure and post-closure liability now into that line. And it just changed a little bit with inflation. So that's the full amount. Most of that is the full amount to close and monitor your landfill sites when the time comes. And then the last one is retirement benefits payable, and that's relating to the old police force. Looking at your financial asset trends, so that's your financial assets minus the financial liabilities. From 2022 to 2023, you see that big drop, and that's because of that change in accounting policy that you had no choice in with the asset retirement obligation, so it increased your liabilities. And then in 2024, it was really just the increase in the capital leases causing that decrease furthermore. Your non-financial assets are the assets you have that you're using to provide services to the ratepayers, the biggest being your tangible capital assets. So that's recorded at the historical cost of those assets minus amortization or the expensing of the assets over their useful life. So one thing to really note, in December 2020, you had 26.4 million in capital assets, and in 2024, you have 40 million. So council has definitely made some significant increases there over the years. From 2023 to 2024, you had additions of just over 4 million and amortization or the expensing over the useful life of 1.6 million. So that's why you see the increase there, but overall, just a nice trend there. The additions, like I said, just over $4 million. Here's the categories that they were, that the additions fell in. The biggest ones being equipment, and that's your grader, the excavator, as well as the new chiller at the arena. And then other significant vehicles, there was lots of trucks, 4 trucks and a plow truck purchased during 2024, just kind of reminding you it was a little while ago. And then the roads and streetlights, of course, was the downtown project in Wingfield Road as well. And then again, just good to look back and see how much you have in capital asset additions, because what you really want to make sure is you're replacing your capital assets at a greater rate than the amortization. So the black is the amortization, the teal is the addition. So of course, the amortization is based on the historical cost. So you really want to make sure that you're replacing them at a greater rate than that historical cost, and kind of on trend, not necessarily every year, but you can see in the last 4 years, you've significantly been doing that. And then your accumulated surplus. So at the end of the day, on your financial statements, you're going to see that you have a $33 million accumulated surplus. Of course, that's not your operating surplus. That's all the surpluses when you look at it all together. And the largest one out of that 33 million is your 30.9 million invested in capital assets. So that's the net book value of the capital assets minus the debt associated with the assets, minus the asset retirement obligations, as well as a $474,000 unfunded capital amount. So that's going to come up in a second again, but there is $474,000 in capital projects that have not been funded yet from your project. So of that 33, most of it is invested in capital assets. You do have a $795,000 accumulated surplus in the township. So that's an overall increase of about $449,000. And if you recall a second ago, I said you have unfunded capital of about $474,000. So those pretty much wipe each other out. If you were to take your accumulated, your operating surplus, if you will, and fund that capital, then that would wipe out your operating surplus. You also have you have to take out the long-term debt that you have that's supporting operations that was taken out a number of years ago with the disbandment of the police force. And then you have a water deficit. You do have accumulated deficits in the boards. Primarily, all of that is the arena. They actually had a deficit of almost $90,000, accumulated deficit of $90,000 at the end of the year. And then your unfunded retirement benefit liability. The bottom of this slide shows the reserves, though. You do have $2.2 million of reserves at the end of the year. There was some use of the reserves. And part of the decrease there too is a result of the change in accounting policy regarding the building permits. Because of course that revenue needed to be taken out of the reserves that had already been recognized. So a lot of that decrease there in the reserves will just be going back in. It's just a timing difference. And looking at the revenue expenses, this is just a snapshot of them over the years. You can see pretty consistent. 2021 to 2023, you had a lot of capital grants, which is why you see the big difference between the revenue and the expenses. And that's because the revenue all gets recognized when you receive it. But then, of course, the offsetting expense is being done over the useful life of the assets that were purchased. And then total revenues. Your total revenue was budgeted $11.8 million. The actual was $12.8 million. There was a significant increase, I'd say, over budget because of supplementary taxes in your taxes from 6.8 to about $170,000 there. Your user charges were up over budget as well. There was increased contribution from the curling club because of that new chiller, as well as you had an increase in water and sewer, as well as building permits actually increased over the budgeted amount. One thing to note too, when you look at the percentages, property taxation and user charges, so basically your ratepayers account for about 80% of your total revenue. Other significant amounts on the statement of operations for revenue, your government transfers $1.4 million. $937,000 of that amount is your OMPF funding. And then another significant amount there is your $230,000 that you received for the retrofit for the library and the theater as well is included in there. Your other municipalities, of course, that's your funding for your shared services for fire and building, as well as money contributed for the arena. And then $190,000 in penalty and interest on taxes. That's the only advantage of having your taxes go up a little bit is you get the P&I on that if you haven't collected it. It doesn't help your cash flow though. And then the other amount to note here, the development charges earned is zero. That's because none were spent during the year. They are all sitting there on the balance sheet, as I talked about earlier. And then your Canada Community Building Fund, or previously known as gas tax, $400,000. That was the amount spent during the year on Wingfield Road. And then your expenses, we're required to show them two ways. I kind of did a deep dive on your expenses, and there was nothing significant that changed it. Overall, you budgeted about 11.3 million. You came in at about 11.7 million. We'll see a little more detail on the next page. This is more by department, so you can kind of see, there's increases here and there, but there was nothing I could really pinpoint on. There was all just kind of little amounts here and there. And then when we see on the next statement here, same numbers at the bottom, just more the type of expenses. So you can see overall there was an increase in salary and benefits over budget. Interest charges, I'm not sure really. I think that's with the new debt. I couldn't sort out kind of where the budget number came from. And then decrease in materials as well as contracted services as well. And then amortization, although you don't budget it, we put it in your financial statements as the same amount as the prior year, just to make everything a little more comparable. But of course, with all the increase in your capital assets, then that is over budget, if you will, or over the amount in the financial statements, which then again will make your expenses look higher than budgeted amount. And that is the end of my presentation. I'll stop sharing and happy to address any questions.
Questions? No, apparently no questions. You did a thorough presentation. I'm very pleased to have the report. It's been a while coming. So we need a motion to receive that.
I'll move. I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Joanna's staying on for this next one.
Joanna can stay on for the next if there's any questions. This has to do with the financials as well, which is what Baker Tilly has prepared for us. I don't know if there is the next report is just a presentation of the 2024 financial statements. And it is the recommendation is that the council approve the proposed consolidated financial statements for the year end. This is the actual statements in their true form from the information that Joanna has presented.
Okay, do you want to talk about the 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We jumped ahead, just,
Yeah.
So there's no public input, we're fine there. There's no announcements, get circle around under new business on that one. I need a motion that the minutes of the regular council meeting held March 3rd, 2026 be adopted.
I'll move.
Seconded.
Second.
Now we get to the financials. You want me to read the whole motion?
Or I can.
Okay.
Okay.
So that report, TRE 26039 from the Chief Administrative Officer, Deputy Treasurer regarding the 2024 financial statements be received, and further that the Council of the Township of Sterling Rotten approve the proposed consolidated financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024 for the Township of Sterling Rotten, the Township, attached as Appendix 1. And further, that council received the attached audit findings report for the year ended December 31st, 2024 for the Township of Sterling Rotten, attached as Appendix 2.
And mover for that, please.
I'll move.
Seconder. Branch or wait, Kelly, do you want to speak to us?
Not really. Joanna's done the presentation very thoroughly as to what exactly is in here. This is, like I said, these are just the true form of the financial statements, and these are what is get posted on the township website, as well as presented to the bank and to the ministry as well.
Basically the raw data of the creative. Any questions on any of that? Apparently not. Okay, all in favor of receiving it? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I'd like to recognize all the work that staff put into this, preparing this. This was a particularly challenging year, putting all these numbers together. I think we're gonna, I don't know about a better place, but we certainly have a clearer image of where we're at. And I think going forward, that will make making decisions much easier, more realistic. 8.2, we'll get the motion on the floor and I'll get you to read it again, Becky, please.
That the staff report ENV-26-036 regarding landfill recycling depot and bulky waste service review be received, and further that council authorize an exemption from the township's procurement policy bylaw 1563-22 to allow a renegotiated strict contract for landfill depot bulky pickup and disposal services with E360, as this achieves the best value for the township service requirements. And further, that staff be directed to notify the current service provider of bulky waste pickup at the landfill depots to cease said service after April 30th, 2026. And further, that staff be directed to finalize an amended contract with E360 for large and bulky waste disposal for 3 years, with service to commence May 1st, 2026. And further, that staff be directed to notify the public of this change in service upon execution of the contract.
Mover for that, please. Seconder.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think we've all, are there any questions on this that's got to do with the changes in the recycling program that came into effect? Yeah, do you want to speak to it, Matt?
Good afternoon, your worship, councillors. So as we've previously discussed, and as the report itemizes the 3 options, we're recommending that the depot recycling at both the Sterling and Rodden landfills be removed, as it's a redundant service since everybody has curbside pickup for recycling, and that we enter into contract for bulky waste materials with E360, which is going to be a savings from our current provider for the waste hauling.
All right, once these contracts are finalized and approved, we will notify the public of those changes.
Your worship, yes, we will be putting some signage up at both landfill sites, social media, and any way that we can reach the public. So.
Okay. The decision is that because we're providing curbside, it's no longer necessary to maintain the cost associated with having pickup at the landfills as well. The background. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And thank you, Matt. That was a lot of work to get there.
Thank you.
A lot of unnecessary work. Thank you, Mr. Ford. 8.3, the staff report, PUB, public 26034 from the manager of public works regarding the tender results, crushed gravel tender, granular material be received. And further, the council approved the 2026 crushed gravel tender the award to Danforth Construction in the amount of $240,560.63 plus HST. Again, mover for that, please.
I'll move.
Seconder,
I'll second.
all in favor? I think we're fortunate again to have them as a local supplier. 8.4, that the staff report 26043 regarding the asphalt rejuvenation procurement be received, and further that the council authorize staff to enter into an agreement with the county of Lennox and Addington and Superior Road Products for the supply of all equipment, materials, and labor necessary to undertake works that consist of the supply and placement of the asphalt rejuvenator on various roads throughout the township in 2026.
I'll move to accept.
Second from that.
Second.
Any questions on why or how we're doing this?
I want to clarify, it's for Ridge Road, is it?
That's the intent.
And it's gonna put a, put it.
A sealing coat on it to try and extend the life. If we can get it on now, we can hopefully get another 5 or 6 years before.
And we get a little bit better deal by going through,
We do, we get a much better deal. We get a 2024 price. They have a 3-year contract, so. We're fortunate that they're allowing us to do this. It's not the normal way we do that, which is why it's coming back to council.
so is it just the Ridge Road?
I think that's the only.
Yeah, through your worship, that's the only road that we budgeted for this year. So, manager of public works was able to talk to Lennox and Addington and get in on the end of this 2-year term so that we could get that road redone. But yes, that's the only one that's been paved recently, and this will extend the life of that road.
Just one question, is the Campbellford Highway under the same guidance type thing? Like, do we do the same thing with it as opposed to, or just the
I believe, was it a few years ago, Matt, we put a sealer on that?
okay,
Yeah, so it's the same sort of.
same sort of system, okay, well, that really, we can extend the life of it, by all means.
Any other questions on that? All in favor? 8.5. That the staff report TRE 26038 from the Chief Administrative Officer, Deputy Treasurer regarding council and committee remuneration and expenses for the year ending December 31st, 2025. We received a mover for that, please.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Are there any questions on that? That's pretty straightforward. All in favor? Carried. Look at my paperwork here. Okay, the staff report 26044 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the 2025 public sector salary disclosures be received. Move for that, please.
I'll move.
Seconder,
I'll second.
all in favor? Carried. 8.7. That the staff report CLK 26027, sorry, regarding the planning cost agreement with Dr. Patel, okay, I can handle that. For their site plan control application on lands located at 2524 Sterling Run Road be received. And further, that the bylaw 2026 as listed on this agenda to authorize the execution of the said planning cost agreement between the corporation and the township of Sterling Run and Dr. Patel. And move for that, please.
I'll move.
Seconder.
I'll second.
That's the property across the road here. They're looking at moving forward this, and this is just an agreement so that the planning and the vendor pays the cost and the township is remunerated. All in favor? 8.8, and this is all yours, Becky. I'll let you go ahead.
That staff report CLK 26-029 regarding the 2026 municipal elections update we received, and further that a lame duck delegation of powers bylaw being a bylaw to delegate certain duties and acts during restricted periods, lame duck, after nomination day or the election of a new council, as presented be approved at the next feasible council meeting. And further, that the use of corporate resources for election purposes policy is presented to be approved.
I'll move.
Heather,
I'll second.
are there questions on that? Does everybody understand how this affects us going forward?
I'd love just a quick refresher of the lame duck. It's the period between the election and the sitting of council, is
Yeah,
that right?
through the mayor to take care of it.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's two different situations that we can go into a lame duck after nomination day to the election period, or the voting day, sorry, and then from voting day to the new term of council. And it's 3/4, when less than 3/4 of the outgoing council would sit on the, and in this case, it's 3 out of 5 for this township of Sterling Robin. So if you have less than 3 going in, then you enter into a lame duck.
Which means we can do what?
So what, yeah, so what this is you lose majority of your council members on your outgoing.
Yeah.
Term into your new.
Yeah.
And then this bylaw is to delegate authority for certain functions that can't be, to the CAO. So the CAO during those periods, should anything fall into those 4 criteria, then the CAO has the delegated authority to execute those duties.
All in favor?
There won't be a quiz at the end.
All right. I'll read the final on this one, but the correspondence information's items 9.1 through 9.6 is listed on the agenda we received. Can I have a mover for that?
I'll move.
Seconder? Are there any of those items that you would like to discuss or have questions on? All right, just a quick one on the 9.6. The conservation authorities. I don't know how many of you are familiar that they had come up with a new Eastern Ontario Regional Conservation Authority. They've gone from 36 to 7, I believe. Now they've gone from 36 to 9. So we've had a bit of a change in the makeup of our particular group going forward. There's been a little more information released on timing, and this comes into effect and it's quite quick. The big change that will be affecting us here, or one of the big changes, is that Hastings County will be our representative, municipal representative. Which is quite a shock to everyone, because Hastings County has nothing to do with previous. We're still not sure, and they haven't given us a final answer on how it's going to be funded.
So one representative on Hastings County would go to those meetings, is that what you're saying?
That's the way I understand it. Well, no, yes and no. They have, it's quite package. In that Eastern Ontario Regional, there'll be the 7 conservation authorities. And representatives of the upper level or county level and the city, so Quinte West and Belleville will also be sitting on that board. But this is, is Kingston going to want 2? Are they going to want 1? Is each conservation authority going to, it's not really clear. And then the other problem is they want to implement it quite quickly. They're going to put a study group together here very shortly. I'm not sure, and they weren't clear on that, who was actually going to be on that committee. And then, of course, it's going to, at election time, it's going to be, there will not be, after the election, municipalities will not be appointed members, but the new board doesn't take effect till at least February of next year. And you have to do a budget in between that, so your guess is as good as mine, how that's gonna work.
Big thing of lame ducks.
It's a challenge. All in favor? Carried. And I'm sure I messed that up, but it's, nobody can explain it. I don't feel guilty. 10.1, that bylaw 2026 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an Ontario transfer payment agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Sterling Run and His Majesty the King in right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure for funding under the Municipal Housing Infrastructure Program, MHIP. Health and Safety Water Stream be read and passed on the 17th day of March 2026. Mover for that, please.
I'll move.
Seconder,
I'll second.
and this just formalizes that agreement, so we can, yeah.
Yes, this is for the rather large grant that we're receiving.
The 10-point, yeah. That's excellent. And I'm sure everybody's in favor, but I'll ask for a vote. Carried. The bylaw, we need you to read this. Bill.
Yep. Yeah, bylaw 21-2026 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a planning cost agreement between the corporation of the township of Sterling Rodden and Dr. Patel on property located at 2524 Sterling Marmor Road, be read and passed the 17th day of March 2026.
Mover,
I'll move.
Seconder,
Okay.
all in favor? Carried. At this time, can we discuss the Alto? No.
If you want to. If you'd like to bring forward a notice of motion, or are you looking under new or other business?
Which one would you prefer?
It's actually at your call.
Other business. Okay, what's happening? You're all aware that we have a meeting next week with Alto. There's been a lot of back and forth. But what's brought it to a head today is there was a motion came to Hastings County Council. Basically regarding the Alto. It's kind of a split situation. The southern municipalities are not in favor of it at all. The northern ones are not necessarily against it. And all of us would like to see more information before a decision is made. There just isn't adequate information to make a decision, an informed decision. So next Thursday at Hastings County Council, there will be a motion put on the floor to not support either the north or the south. Because we don't want this nonsense going on any longer. Until further information is received. So I'm just asking for guidance from members of council as to how they would like me to vote on that.
I think you know my answer. It's maybe just fill in. To me, it's money. It's disruptive to our areas, not just here with the south road, but the north road. I think it's going to be far more interference up there because of the land itself. And for what? The 3 stops in Ontario that maybe 10 people might get on and get off, and then 300 kilometers later they get off again. We'll never see it. Well, you won't use it, Grant. I can't see Caroline using it or anybody else in this room.
It doesn't do any good to our entire area. as
No,
far as I can
no,
see.
absolutely
And
not.
it won't be $90 billion.
It'll be far more than
It'll
that.
be a lot.
And that's not, and they still haven't come up with, they're they'll just expropriate the property, and then they'll deal with the financial end of it later. Who buys a piece of property and gets it and doesn't pay for it? You know, like that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's no planning here. And I see today, we got an email where they've extended the date from the 29th
I saw that.
of March to April, which is good. Because I would like to have a meeting after we go to our 25th meeting here to see exactly what they have to offer. Be nice to discuss it after that, but
Well, I think the way the county one is worded is we want more information
Yeah.
before we're willing to support it. And it's unfortunate they put in those 2 options.
Yeah.
And they made them so large. I mean, if they had said, well, it's going down there, then, you know, a lot of this uncertainty would be gone, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I go back and vote in favor of the motion, it's not in favor, understand.
So the motions is in favor.
The motion that will, as far as I know, that's coming forward in town will be that, at this time, we're not supporting it until more information.
I agree.
A lot more information.
Yeah, I've read, some of the, I haven't been into those meetings, but I read the one that was in El Dorado. And just about everybody that said something was, the questions that were asked, there was no answers.
No,
Or not
Not enough.
Not enough, right, and that's what you're saying, there's not enough information for the kind of money and the size of the project and the whole situation.
Thank you, worship. I just wanted to mention, so the next, next Wednesday, between 11 and 3, and then again, it's from 5 to 9 at the Lions Club Hall. They're going to be having the presentation. Elton will be there, the representatives, and it'll be similar to what they've had in NADOC, which they have their iPads and information, and you can go around and speak to it. Up in NADOC, there was over 1,000 people. But that's what they've counted, just under 1,000. So I recommend council if you want to get there and to be there for a few minutes. But the other thing that I found very helpful and that a lot of people are looking at is the interactive map. And I did send an email out with council just to give you that link. And you can click right onto the map and you can register and make comments. And suggesting is that if you're talking to the constituents, is that's where they should go. They should really be taking a look and they can indicate why they may have an issue with their particular property. So it gives them just a voice. Instead of it having to go through a council resolution, they can have their individual voice by making something on that interactive map.
There still does seem to be a desire, though, I've heard it more than a couple of times myself, for us to say something.
Is the meeting, is there going to be a question period at the meeting? Or just somebody there to answer a question if you see something on there?
If it's done the same way it was done in El Dorado, they have a number of their people scattered around the room at the stations
Yeah,
that you can ask the question.
so they're not having an open question period.
It's not an open queue.
Yeah, because to me, that's far more productive because something I may say or something that you would like to ask about, eh?
No, they have been posting a lot of their answers on the website. You feel there's a need for a statement from us, or is this good enough to support the county?
Did we say we support Hastings County or?
I think we can be proactive. in that one.
I would be happy with that, just to say that we're supporting Hastings County's resolution.
Yeah, okay, is that, fine?
Did you wanna make that a resolution then and second it? That way you have something to
Something
give
to
it
work
to you
with.
when you go to vote at county.
Like I say, I don't have the word, I understand it will be that until further information is received, support's not there.
We're not supporting either group.
No, we're not taking the horse of that. Yeah, okay. All right,
I would make that motion.
second for that then,
I'll second them.
okay, all in favor? Carry. And I'm sure that's not the end of the people. Okay, 13 points.
What, I'm gonna go back to the conservation thing. How much, how much do we really have to say about that? Nothing.
There was, 5 months of, no, longer than that, there was over 1,000 delegations that were collected on that. I think I was on 3 different ones. I spent 2 hours yesterday morning with MP Precinct and BP Precinct discussing this. So it's not. Yeah, they say they're open for discussion, but they're already starting the process.
Yeah, that's
Take
right.
it all.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Oh, you can see what happened to the green areas in Toronto. And what's to say is not gonna happen down here. And the problem is a lot of those green areas is where our water supplies come. We don't have the luxury of having Lake Ontario at our front door. So
It does feel very short-sighted.
Pockets thing. I say,
I'm not happy with either, guys. I'm not supporting what they have done. Okay, the bylaw 22, 2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council. Township of Sterling Run at its meeting of March 17th, we read and passed on the 17th day of March, St. Patrick's Day. Move for that, please.
I'll move.
Randall and Don, all in favor? Great. Motion to adjourn? Move.
Second.
Okay, thank you.